Okay, today we are going to learn about the upcoming holiday called Shevuos. There's one siman basically in the Torah and Shulchan Aruch that discusses the halachas of Shevuos, siman Tav Sadi Daled. Pretty short Torah, pretty short siman in general. In the Mishna Berura, it's only 3 pages. Halachas
Hello.
of Shevuos are the shortest out of any holiday that we have. It's the shortest. There's basically 3 sections that pertain to the halachas of Shavuos. Uh, right? You have the general halachas of any holiday that you have, which apply equally on Shavuos. What are you allowed to do on regular Yom Tov? What are you not allowed to do? But particularly when it comes to Shavuos, you have the one section which is basically what do we learn? What do we read about? And the davening. How does the davening go? The second part is really staying up all night because there is a custom to stay up and learn Torah all night. Which if you actually add the hours, it's probably less than 5 hours of actually learning. It's not that much time this time of the year over here
I
in New
think less.
York. Right? Depends
Right,
what time you get there. If you finish your
right,
suit, you get there 11 o'clock, you
right.
can learn 5 hours, right? So I said around 5 hours.
Sorry, but
Okay.
yeah,
So you have those halachas, which really aren't specific to Shavuos, which apply any night of the year that a person stays up all night, whether he's learning or not. And then lastly, you have these where we discussed eating dairy. It's custom to have dairy, milchiks, and the question is why. And then you have some miscellaneous halachas, such as having grass in the shul or flowers and the like. So that's basically broken down the halachas. It's pretty straightforward. The Mishna Berura opens up the siman by saying Uma'achrin lehispalal arvis, that we delay davening mariv b'knisa shvuos b'seisel chachavim. The first line of the Mishnah Berurah of this siman is that we delay davening mariv when the holiday of Shavuos comes, and we don't daven mariv until when 3 stars emerge. Kedei shiyu yemei hasfira arba'in b'tishim yoim temimos. In order that these days of Seder will be 49 complete days. What is the source of this Mishnah, bro? The Shar Hatzeon in Os Aleph. So it's a Taz, it's a Pri Megadim. That's how the Mishna Berura decides to open the siman chronologically. The first thing you do on the holiday of Shavuos is you daven mariv. When do you daven mariv? The Taz writes, opening up on the siman, Ma'achrin lahasil arvis b'knisa Shavuos. We delay beginning mariv when Shavuos enters in. Kedei shiu yemei hasfira temimos, in order that the days of Sira will be complete. We pointed out that the Torah literally just has one little page on this entire siman. One teeny little page. That's it. What is this idea with Tmimais? If we go to the Pri Megadim, in the Mishpatzoi Zahav, he quotes in the Shuvos Mases Binyamin, Shemamtinin b'kiddush ad alayla. The source of this Mishnah Berura is the Taz, and the source of the Taz is this tshuva of the Mases Binyamin, who says that we wait to say kiddush until it's nighttime. So the poskim already point out that they're specifically referring to kiddush over here. The Taz over here is now coming up with this newfangled idea of that you even have to wait for 3 stars to emerge to daven mariv. But really, the way that this has always been is you have to wait to say kiddush until when 3 stars comes out. Mikol makom yira the gam arvis mamtina, but says the Pri Megadim, it seems like you should also wait for 3 stars to emerge to daven mariv. K'mo shekosav ataz, like the Taz writes, the ho ba'avelus v'nida yesharmim mispal akal arvis shekfar asolulai etc. V'im kain ho bina tamimos mem tes yoim ukish mispal arvis umaskir b'tfilo yoim ashuas mevoy yoim harichos mem tes yoim. The Pri Megadim is coming on to the idea that if a person would daven mariv on Shevuos night when it would still be day, you're lacking from the 49 complete days that you need. Obviously, from this opening topic of all the halachas of Shevuos that the poskim are really handling, the Taz, the Mishna Berura, the Pri Megadim, this easily invites the opportunity to discuss making early Shabbos, making early Yom Tov in general, which is massive topics in and of itself. Which Yom Tovim are you not allowed to start early, and why? What about Tosefes Yom Tov? Adding on to the Yom Tov is potentially midaraisa, an obligation from the Torah. How do you reconcile the two? Pri Megadim continues, quoting a Magen Avraham in Hilchos Kiddush in Simin Reish Ayin Aleph. And he says that we find by Pesach and Sukkot on the first night and Shavuos on the first night, by Kiddush you have to wait for night. In Kiddush al Makom Sudo, the Kiddush has to be in the place where you're going to eat. It's prohibited to eat before the nighttime. It says, Berev Toichlu Matzos, that you're going to eat matzah at night, Tesvav, Gemara and Sukkah. We learn out Gazeta Shava, anything that applies on Pesach applies on Sukkot. Pesach, you can't start earlier, because the pasuk says you have to eat it at night. Furthermore, the Korban Pesach, everything is attached to that. The whole Seder, the Suda, Kiddush, it's all attached to that. You can't start earlier. So too Sukkot. But what about the last days of Sukkot? Shmini Atzeres, says the Pri Megadim. We're tangenting a little over here. I wouldn't tangent, but since the Pri Megadim did, so now we could. Had it been up to me, we wouldn't be learning about this. But the Pri Megadim mentions it, so we're going to learn about it. If it was up to me, we'd be learning the halachas of Shevuos. Says the Pri Megadim. Once we're on the topic, let's talk about it. Kiddush and Shmini Atzeres. Look in Simin Tafrei Shamach Ches in the Taz, the Marshal Mamtin Natzeitu Chavim. You want to wait for 3 stars to emerge. Why? Last days of Sukkot, you got to wait. Why? If you're not going to wait, then you would need to say Aleisha B'Sukkah. If you're going to say Aleisha B'Sukkah, then you're showing that it's not Shmini Atzeres. If you're going to do Shmini Atzeres, then it's going to be an issue. If you're going to do when it's earlier, because you're going to need to do Aleisha, so it's a problem. That's why you wait till 3 stars emerge. Now, according to this, you could daven mariv seemingly earlier. Because the whole concern is that you're going to get the Sukkah, and it's going to still be day, and you're going to need to say Aleishiv. If you're saying Aleishiv, it ain't Shmini Atzeres. If you're saying Kiddush, it's Shmini Atzeres, that means it's not Sukkot. You can't do the Aleishiv. So what does it have to do with davening? But Taz Choylik, the Taz argues, look over there, more details. His palal arvis yochel mavoy join the Pesach for Sukkot. So maybe you could daven mariv when it's still day on Pesach and Shavuos. Maybe the concern is just Kiddush. But Shavuos is completely different, explains the Pri Megadim according to the Taz, because Shavuos has the additional element of Tamimos, and that it shall be complete. You need the completion of the 49 full days. What about the second night of Shavuos? Because of a doubt on the day. Maybe you should be stringent. He says that's a mistake. Because you're not counting on the first day. In other words, all this is just going to apply the first day. Seems like that's the explanation of the Pri Megadim.
You got Lel Beis of what, Shavuos?
It could be, maybe he's also referring to Pesach. Pesach also, you wouldn't have an issue on the second night. Nevertheless, this opens up a major topic over here, which is starting Yom Tov early. And do you need to wait for 3 stars to emerge specifically by Kiddush? Or do we say that no? That even this applies to davening. The Mishna Berura is taking the approach of the Taz that this even applies to the Shmona Esrei.
There's a big difference.
Oh yeah. There's a tremendous,
By the time you walk home, it's like
difference.
massive difference.
an hour.
There's a tremendous halachic ramification that this also has on something that none of us has thought of. And the reason why is because we don't think like women. But this whole idea of Tamimos Tihieno, this applies to men. We count sefira. We're obligated, full-fledged obligation, as we learned together, Hilchos Sfiras Omer, Simin Tov Pei Tesef Aleph in depth. We are obligated in sefira, and therefore we are subject to that which the pasuk says, "To me, moistiena, there shall be a completeness." Consequently, it makes sense that logically we will need to wait mark the Islay either for 3 stars to emerge to begin kiddush. Certainly, we need to wait for then, or even like we saw, others say that even for mariv we need to wait for 3 stars. But the question becomes: let's say a woman who is living by herself, she's not with men. Would she need to wait, number one, for davening, but more importantly for her, for kiddush? Or could she say kiddush earlier? Yeah. Furthermore, we must ask the second question. There's a mitzvah of Tosefes Yom Tov, of adding on to the holiday and starting it a little bit earlier, which is perhaps the oraisa, an obligation from the Torah. If we are not able to say kiddush, or especially if we're not able to daven mariv until 3 stars emerge, how are we able to add on to the holiday and start it earlier? These are questions which we have to attempt to figure out the answer over here. Mishna Berura explains, we delay mariv. The first night of Yontif enters in, they specify. Specifically on the first night, till 3 stars emerge, in order that the sefira will be 49 complete days. And if you're going to daven mariv when it's still day, it's considered night. So now you're lacking a little bit from that end of sefira, which is a problem, even though you're not counting. Doesn't matter. You're still lacking a little bit.
I mean, second day you could do early.
Oh, that's exactly this footnote. That's exactly what we already saw alluded to by the Pri Megadim. But on the second night, even though it's a sveika de yoimo, you don't need to be stringent. Since on the first night you don't count sefira because of a suffix, you don't need to worry about tamimos. That's the Pri Megadim that we saw.
Is that universal or?
Yeah, yeah. They point out in the footnote, the source of this is the Shilos Veteshuvos Mases Binyamin, which we saw also quoted in the Pri Megadim. Don't make kiddush until it's night. The Taz writes that even mariv this gets extended to. Don't wait till it goes. However, the Eliya Raba doesn't say that you need to wait. He said for mariv, he says only. The Eliya Raba says you only need to wait for kiddush. And he says sarachin on the Taz. Taz is questionable. Where's the Taz coming from when he says that you have to wait for mariv for 3 stars to emerge? So it could be that the Eliya Raba is of the opinion that mariv does not make something night when you daven mariv. The Pri Megadim answers up for the opinion of the Taz that the Pri Megadim yishev shitas hashas tfilos arvis machshiva es hazman shel of laila. That the Pri Megadim says that according to the Taz, no, mariv does make what you're doing into night, which is very interesting because if you're davening after plaga mincha, mariv, it's before even sunset to say that it makes it night. But what's the proof from the halachas of Avelus? It says in your day, at the end of your day, in Shin Ayin Hey Sif Yud Aleph, Mishas Pal Arvis V'Adayin Hu Yoim V'Shama Shemei Slom Meis. You daven mariv, and it was still day, and you found that one of your 7 relatives passed away, either a spouse, father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister. Some say some say that you count already starting the next day, right? And that day doesn't count. It seems like you found out someone, one of your close ones died, and they were buried already. So now you could start with the Shiva. Seems like that's what it means with the Shiva, but I'd have to look that up again in your day over there, Shinai and Vav. Taz comments, She'im yachshiv zman zeh keyoim legabi avelus, horize tartis atre. Now you can't consider a day by avelus, because that would be a contradiction. Right? So the idea over here is if we're going to say that you start counting from the next day because you already daven mariv, even though it's day and that day is not going to count, then we see that once you daven mariv, it's already considered the next day. But wait a second, says the Taz. If we're going to say that it's day, so then you have a problem. What is it? Is it day or the next day? Machatzes Hashekel, yeah.
He just said before in regards to Sukkot, it's not considered the next day.
In regards to
Sukkot Shmini Atzara.
Shmukah Shmi, that's why you need to wait, correct? Correct.
But here he's saying, it is the next day because you got to start. Because since you kept Shabbos already,
Correct.
You can't count Friday as day one of Avelis.
Correct. That's why the Taz wants you to wait for Mariv. Yeah. By Machatzes Hashekel, Shadiak Medivri Magen Avraham, Shlo Yosel Lakadosh Mevoy Jam Valas Bal Arvis Mutter. The Machatzes Hashekel says, based on what the Magen Avraham says in the beginning of this Siman, the whole problem is making kiddush when it's still day before 3 stars emerge. But davening mariv would in fact be permissible. Shahadi Kosev Shiyazara Likroya Kriya Shema Shuv Achar Seidchavim. He says, be careful to recite Shema after 3 stars emerge. Kevin Shena Kari Al Mitaso, since you're not saying Shema on the bed. The poskim, they actually talk about this, that you have a major issue of Shema on the night of Shevuos if you're going to be davening early, because usually or maybe sometimes you would remember before you go to sleep the Kriyat Shema Lamita. But over here, you're not going to remember that because you're not going to sleep on Shevuos night, right? So that is a point that he makes over here.
Who's it, the Taz?
No, they're quoting the Magen Avraham, who says this point. Machatzes Hashekel, he's diak from the Magen Avraham Bereisha Siman, the beginning of the Siman. I see over here the Magen Avraham says, "Ein mekadshin ala kois ad seitzah chavim." Don't do kiddush on the coast until seitzah chavim. Just looking for where the Magen Avraham mentions this Shema. I've seen others. There's no introduction to the Siman that he gives, right? Yeah. I've seen others that made this point also with the Shema, that you need to be careful with this. I'm not seeing it in the Magen Avraham, that specific point about Shema. Then he's already going into the lachos of staying up all night. He's going into the trup over here. So I'm not sure where that is. That point with the Shema over here. Not sure where that point is, but nevertheless, the idea is that according to this Machatzes Hashekel, the Magen Avraham holds that you could daven mariv when it's still day, right? I would say the bigger proof is he says it straight up right over here. Don't make kiddush until 3 stars emerge, which implies you could daven before then, right? That's the Mases Binyamin, right? So it talks about the rest of the year. That was the point that I just said about the Shema. So you see clearly that the Magen Avraham holds you could daven mariv when it's still day. His whole concern is the kiddush. Shilos Veteshuvos Divrei Yotziv. It's I think the Klosenberger Rebbe. I always get confused. The Divrei Chaim I think is the Sanzer Rebbe. I get confused between the two. Shilos Veteshuvos Divrei Yotziv and Or Chaim actually have this. Simin Reish Chavav Oz Beis says im hikdim lespal mevoy joim ein ze iser. If you daven when it was still day, there's no prohibition. Shari lo iser temimois el shenir kemachaser. If you daven when it was still day, there's no prohibition in that because you're not lacking from the completeness, from the temimois. Rather, it just looks like you're lacking. And he's medayik, says this based on what the Shulchan Aruch Harav says. She'im yakdimenu v'yakabu kedushos yoim tov betfilim avoy joim harize k'moy shechasru me'at memem tesimoy sefira. If you daven when it was still day, it's like you're lacking from the 49 days of sefira. Okay, so this is the Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura's commentary on this. Comes out that if we just zoom out a little bit of the knowledge that we gained over the last 25 minutes or so, we will realize that we learned tremendous amount of information regarding starting Yontif early, before three stars emerge. Is that specifically when it comes to kiddush, that you have to wait for the three stars to emerge, or even to daven or not? So different opinions. The Mishna Berura, interestingly enough, went like the Taz, not like the Magen Avraham and others, who said that you should wait even for davening, and we saw some of the reasons. What didn't we answer yet, though? We asked a question. What was the question?
What was the question?
What was the question? We asked the question. It was unanswered. All of this applies to who?
To the men.
To the men. But what about the women? They don't count sefira. Do they also have to wait for three stars to emerge to recite kiddush if they're by themselves? An almana, a widow, gerusha, divorced woman, uh, an unmarried woman, someone who's never married, women's getaway, retreat, women's yontif only, is actually subject to an argument. The Dershu Mishna Berura actually quotes this in short in footnote 1, opening the Siman. I like to quote the Shlomo Zalman Auerbach first because it's quicker, straight to the point. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in the halachas of Shevuos, Perek Yud Beis, Oz Beis, Hanoshim sheminhagam lahadbek anedus lakavad yom tov mevoy joim, nohagas kain gam be'erev chag Shevuos. Says the Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, women who light candles, really oil, but they're called candles. They light for Shabbos and Yontif when it's still day. They always like starting earlier. They could do that also on Shavuos as well. First night, obviously. Say over here, that was the custom in Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's house. They say, look at the Eliya Raba, the Pri Megadim, the Taz, the beginning of our Siman, the Machatzes Hashekel, everything that we just saw. But none of the poskim at all mentioned to be careful with lighting candles when it's still day. Good point. They don't mention that. Why? Ulai Mishum, the Kol Zahiro Zoy Eina Medina. Could be because all of this isn't from the letter of the law. What does he mean by that? They're talking about kiddush. They're talking about Shemona Esrei. Lighting is a little bit different. Lighting is a little bit different. They quote over here in the Sefer Piskei Teshuvos, who relates that some are stringent to wait until it's night. Okay.
I mean, because you can't strike the match, you'll have to.
Right. Existing. Yeah, yeah. And the reason would be because they accept the Yom Tov on themselves, and therefore they wouldn't have a tamimos, a completion. But he didn't mention this halach l'maisa. He says about loinis kersham davers at l'maisa, the in Yonenu, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's spelled wrong.
Would the nafka maybe if a woman is counting sefira?
Yeah, let's say she's not though. Let's say she's not.
Let's say she is.
Yeah, let's say she's not. Forget about if she is.
Okay.
Right? If she is, maybe there'll be more of a reason. What we're saying over here is that, okay, now they do need to worry about tamimos. That does apply to them. So there is this idea of them waiting to light. However, look in the Shilos Veteshuvos Mases Binyamin, Chelik Zayin. Siman Lamed Aleph. He has a nice tshuva on this. The response over here is around 3 pages or so. And he says, he was asked the Shaila. He said he was asked the Shaila with women. Women. The husbands weren't home in their house on Shevuos. Could they make kiddush before 3 stars emerge? So we're not talking about lighting anymore. Now we're talking about kiddush. Let's cut to the chase. Quotes what we saw, the Taz, the Magen Avraham. Kol makom yesh loimer, that Nashim are pater from sefira. Nashim, women are completely exempt from sefira. Maybe they don't need to wait. So it begins by giving background on this topic. We don't need to see this. We already know the background information. Then he says, well, there's all background. We already know all this Tamimos business. So on the next page, he says, Upashut tegam noshim lo yakdishu mekaydim. According to what we said, it's obvious that women should not make kiddush before. If they make kiddush before 3 stars emerge, Shevuos is unlike any other holiday that we have. Every other holiday that we have is dependent upon the Eidim testifying that they saw the moon. Pasuk says, for example, in Parshas Emor, by Pesach, it's going to be the 15th of the month, Chag HaMatzos. Rosh Hashanah, it says, it's going to be the 1st of the month. Right? Tishrei, 1st of the month. Yom Kippur, it says, Ach be'asur l'chodesh hashvi, the 10th of Tishrei. Sukkot, it says, the 15th of Tishrei. The common denominator between every other holiday, unlike Shevuos, is a specific date. But Shevuos is unique. And we have to discuss that more this year, as to why Shevuos is unique and doesn't have an official date. But Shevuos doesn't have an official date. What does the Torah say by Shevuos? Aval b'Shevuos nemar, it says, V'sfartem lachem imachros haShabbos. Start counting. Start counting the sefira ha'omer. From when? From the day that you bring the Omer HaTenufa. In English, we call that the 2nd day of Pesach, unlike the Sedukim. They held that it was always on Sunday. Sheva Shabbosos Tamimos Tiena, 7 complete weeks it shall be. Abner Machos Hashabbos Hashviz, until the end of the 7 weeks, Sapru Chamishim Yom, and you count 50 days. What do you do at the end of that? You bring this special korban to Hashem, this new mincha. All right, what do we see from here? It says Allah Hayres Nasan. She'eino talui klal b'yimei hachodesh. Shevuos has nothing to do with a specific date in the month. It's not a specific day. Actually, it's even an argument what day it would be in the Gemara and Shabbos. But the Torah certainly doesn't provide a date for us. There's no date. You know when Shevuos is? After you counted 7 full weeks, then you bring your mincha chadasha, your new korban mincha va'az hu chag Shevuos. Then it's Shevuos. That's what the Rambam says. That's what it says in Torah Shulchan Aruch as well. So, what does that have to do with what we're learning? Well, it's obvious, right? There's no date for the thing. If there's no date, Osbeis, Umata, Mekevan, Shayoim, Chaga, Shevuos Mases Rak, Bakalos, Mem Tes, Yemei Sefira B'Shleimus, Tmimus Ksiv. Since it's 49 days later, you need that completion. Mamelav, Noshim, Shein Chayev, Mitzvos, Yerushalayim, Mikomokom Gan, it's long. Even though women aren't obligated in Sefira, that's very nice. But at the end of the day, they're obligated in Shevuos, and Shevuos clearly starts 49 days after the 2nd day of Pesach, and therefore they cannot start the holiday of Shevuos earlier as well. Consequently, they should not make kiddush before 3 stars emerge. The koydem alayla akati lo chal mitzvahs chag Shavuos. Because before nightfall, the holiday of Shavuos, the mitzvahs, they never fell. It doesn't start. It didn't begin yet. V'anoshim peturos rak mitzvah sefira. Women only exempt from sefira. But Shavuos, that they have to do. That they have to do. Aval gam chaga Shavuos shelahem talyo bekolo sheva shabbos tamimos dafka. They need the end of the full 7 weeks. The continuation of this tshuva over here discusses the question that we alluded to before. Wait a second. How could you reconcile this with Tosefes Yom Tov being Daraisa? The Magid Mishnah in Perek Aleph from Hilchos Shvitzas Aser Halacha Vav, the Lechem Mishnah over there, the Beis Yosef in Hilchos Shabbos, in Orach Chaim Siman Reish Samach Aleph, one of the simanim that we have on our to-do list that we have to do. It's one of the ones that we skipped. He discusses over there Tosefes Shabbos. It's Daraisa. How does that work? If you need to add on, you can't add on because that's what the Torah over here reveals to us. You cannot add on to it. It's impossible. Because if you're going to add on to Shavuos, then you're going to be lacking the Tamimos Tiena. How are you going to have the 49? Wait a second. But if you're going to have the Tamimos Tiena, how are you going to have the Tosefes Yom Tov Midaraisa? It's like it's a lose-lose. It's a major halacha issue. I understand on other Shabbosim and other Yomim Tovim, the Torah says, "Be boisifach mechol ala kodesh." Now you could add on to it. I understand that, but Shavuos, how do you do it? We have this unique exception of it should be a complete day. Rashi says in Bereshis, "V'chalo Elokim b'yoyim hashvi." You have to add on. Mashma, applied from here, that the whole idea of adding on is so that you will not desecrate that which is holy. Sometimes people might be a few minutes off. They might inadvertently violate the Shabbos or the Yom Tov that they have. You have to put up fences so that you won't come to. So to on Shavuos, you could add on because of a fence, so you won't come to desecrate it. You can't say kiddush before 3 stars emerge because of Tamimos Tiena. And you need to add on. How does that work? Tosefes Yom Tov is Daraisa. Tosefos says in Ksubas that's only regarding working. You're not allowed to do prohibited acts on Shabbos. Okay? So it's implied from over here that the mitzvah is to add on only as a fence that you won't come to work. So now it makes sense. We could reconcile and we could have the best of both worlds. We could add on to the Yom Tov and also not make kiddush until it's night. Because even before kiddush, you can't do work because it's Tosefes Yom Tov. So that's kind of how you could live with both. Kiddush is finalizing that it's completely Yom Tov, but still, you could already accept it before. Good answer. Meaning, even though adding on to Yom Tov is from the Torah, that doesn't mean that at that time, now you have the full-fledged holiness of the Yom Tov and you need to make Kiddush. All right? So that's basically what it is. Stop working so you won't do the work on the Yom Tov itself.
So you don't lose out on the communities that way.
Yeah. Correct. That won't detract, as he says on the next line, from the Tamimos at all. You'll still have the 49 days. It's totally fine. But if you do Kiddush, that's a smack in the face. Because now you don't have the Tamimos. Continues in this tshuva. running out of time. Basically, what he says on the next page, all of this is lechatchila. Bidi Eved, post facto, someone who did say kiddush before, even kiddush, certainly davening, would still fulfill his obligation. That's a very important point to think about in the conclusion of this tshuva. So basically, to summarize all of everything that we learned today is learned about the concept of Shevuos, basic breakdown of the halachas, and we basically laser focused in on one topic, the opening topic in Hilchos Shevuos. Can't have time to do everything, so at least what we'll learn it properly. And what did we learn today? We learned today that the general halacha, according to everyone, is that preferably you should not say kiddush before 3 stars emerge. And that could peacefully go with the concept of still Tosefes Yom Tov, that you're still going to add to the holiday of Shavuos. They could coexist in harmony. And you could complete Tamimas Tiana. It's going to be a completion. At the same time, some hold, including in Taz Mishna Berura, that one should not daven mariv before 3 stars emerge. And we saw that there was a discussion about women potentially not lighting before 3 stars emerge also, but Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was of the opinion that it was okay to do so. That's basically all we did in summary. That's all. You sum it up, 30 seconds. So have to type this up and start our quest through Hilchos Shavuos with the 2 remaining days that we have. Right? So Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will continue. Much have a wonderful day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the way to do it. It's the way to do it. Only way to learn halacha properly. Deep dive. Can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Stay inside.
All right, have a wonderful day.
Can't handle the heat, stay inside.
No, can't handle the heat, you gotta get out of the kitchen.
We're not in the kitchen.
Yeah, we're in the kitchen of Torah Kadosh. We're cooking up a storm in here. Au contraire, mon frère.
All right, very good.
Yeah. Raba.
What's cooking today?
On the contrary, it's cooking. You know what's cooking. You just got cooked with this Shevuos, 3 stars, waiting, kiddush, davening, women.
I don't know if I should the car gets your car doesn't get
Also,
hot.
the part of the summary that I missed is that women should wait, even if they're by themselves. They should wait to say kiddush.